3 seconds. That was exactly how long it took for my 6-year marriage to completely shatter into 1,000 pieces. It didn't happen because of an explosive screaming match. It didn't happen because of another man or a sudden, dramatic betrayal. It happened because of a single sentence I uttered right before picking up my car keys and walking out the door. If you've ever felt completely invisible inside your own home, if you've ever loved someone with every ounce of your soul, only to watch them slowly begin treating you like an inconvenient stranger, then you understand the silent, suffocating agony of chasing a ghost. You know what it feels like to beg for crumbs of attention from the person who promised to cherish you forever. What happened after I quietly canceled our anniversary without saying a single word completely turned my wife's world upside down. But I didn't do it out of malice. I did it because I finally broke. For months, I was the one making every excuse for her. I was the one planning, hoping, and breaking my own heart just to keep hers whole. But 3 days before our anniversary, a conversation I was never meant to hear changed everything. It forced me to face a brutal truth about human nature. Some people will never appreciate your presence until they are forced to stand in the freezing cold of your absolute absence. My name is Liam Vance. I'm a landscape architect, a man who spends his life designing spaces for things to grow. But on this day, I realized I was watering a plant that had already died. This is the exact moment I stopped begging and let the silence do the talking. To understand how we got to that kitchen island, you have to understand who we were. I've always been a quiet guy. As a landscape architect, my nature is to be patient. You plant a seed, you tend to the soil, and you wait. I carried that exact same philosophy into my marriage with Maya. Maya was mesmerizing, driven, brilliant, and fiercely successful. By 33, she had climbed the ranks to become the creative director for a major luxury, sustainable tech fashion brand based right here in Seattle. She lived in a world of high-stakes product launches, continuous board meetings, and an endless stream of notifications. When we first met, her drive was one of the things I loved most about her. She chased her dreams with a passion that was infectious. But success has a price, and somewhere along the line, Maya decided that I was the one who would pay it. The distance between us didn't happen overnight. It didn't arrive like a sudden storm. It crept in like a slow, freezing fog. At first, there was always a logical reason. Maya would blame the intense pressure of a new quarterly campaign. Then it was the constant, mandatory business trips to New York or Paris. Then it was simple, understandable exhaustion. And because I loved her, because I trusted her completely, I believed her. Every single time. Every time she canceled our Friday night dinner plans at the last minute via a rushed text message, I told myself it was just a temporary phase. Every time we sat on the couch together and she spent the entire evening scrolling through her work emails, barely offering me a one-word reply when I spoke to her, I convinced myself that things would get better next month. But the months kept passing. The seasons changed, and the woman I loved seemed to be slipping further and further away into a world where I didn't exist. I woke up one morning and realized a terrifying truth. I was completely alone in my own marriage. I was the only one fighting. I bought the flowers. I initiated the conversations. I sent the thoughtful midday texts just to let her know I was thinking of her. In return, I received single-letter acknowledgments, or, more often, complete silence. The breaking point of my dignity happened about 2 months before our anniversary. I had managed to get a highly coveted reservation at her absolute favorite Italian spot. I texted her 3 days in advance, and she promised she would be there. I arrived early. I sat there waiting. At 8:15 p.m., 15 minutes after we were supposed to meet, my phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Liam, can we please skip this tonight? Just wrapped a brutal meeting, and I am utterly exhausted. Let's just do takeout tomorrow." I smiled and texted her back, telling her it was fine. Then, I sat alone in that crowded romantic restaurant, eating a dinner meant for 2 people. The waiter kept looking at that empty chair with so much pity in his eyes that it felt like a physical weight on my chest. It was deeply humiliating. But even then, I swallowed my pride. I told myself that our upcoming 6-year anniversary would be the turning point. I truly believed, with all my heart, that if I just showed her how much I still cared, I could save us. I secretly spent 2 full weeks planning every single detail of our anniversary. I didn't want a standard dinner. I wanted an experience that would remind her of the magic we used to share. I pulled out all the stops. I managed to book a completely private VIP glass dome on a luxury rooftop overlooking the entire Seattle skyline. I hired a professional cellist to play the specific classical arrangements she loved. I ordered custom arrangements of white roses, the exact flowers she held when she walked down the aisle. And the centerpiece of it all was a custom, hand-engraved platinum necklace. On the inside of the pendant, I had the exact coordinates of the place we first met engraved alongside our wedding date. I spent thousands of dollars, but more importantly, I poured what was left of my bleeding heart into it. I hoped, desperately, that it would wake her up. 3 days before our anniversary, I walked into the hallway carrying a stack of blueprints. Maya was in the living room, on speakerphone with her friend Chloe. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but then I heard my name. Maya told her friend, "Liam is probably planning some massive, dramatic anniversary surprise right now. He's been acting so secretive all week." Her friend laughed and told her she'd have to pretend to be surprised. Then Maya let out a heavy, tired sigh and said words I will never forget. "Honestly, I just do not have the energy or the bandwidth for all that relationship stuff right now. I wish we could just treat it like any other Thursday." I froze. The words hung in the air like a toxic gas. Relationship stuff. 6 years of building a life together. 6 years of vows, of shared dreams, of my silent endurance and constant support, had been reduced to an inconvenient chore. Relationship stuff that she had to muster up the energy to pretend to care about. Without making a single sound, I walked away. I didn't storm in. I didn't confront her. That night, I sat in my car in the pitch-black garage for nearly an hour. Maya's voice kept replaying in my head on an endless, brutal loop. And then, for the first time in months, something snapped inside me. The constant excuses I had generated to protect her image in my mind vanished. I realized that by constantly begging for her love, I was teaching her that it was okay to treat me with contempt. I pulled out my phone. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My mind was completely calm. I canceled the private glass dome. I canceled the cellist. I canceled the white roses. I canceled the custom necklace. I canceled everything. I wiped the slate completely clean, and I never said a single word about it. The day of our anniversary arrived. I was sitting at the kitchen island, sipping my morning coffee, when Maya walked downstairs. She looked absolutely stunning, wearing a beautiful emerald green designer dress, her hair and makeup completely flawless. She smiled gently, checked her watch, and asked, "Are we leaving soon? What time is the reservation?" I looked up from my coffee, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, "Leaving? What do you mean?" Her expression completely changed. The smile vanished. "Our anniversary dinner. Liam, don't play dumb. Where are we going?" I looked at her calmly and said, "Oh, I canceled it. I canceled everything." Silence filled the entire room. She blinked in absolute disbelief. "What do you mean you canceled everything? Why would you do that?" I shrugged and told her the truth. "Well, I heard you talking to Chloe 3 days ago. You seem pretty exhausted by all that relationship stuff." I know how stressed you are, so I decided to save you the energy. I figured we could just treat it like any other Thursday." The color instantly drained from her face. For a long, agonizing moment, she simply stared at me, frozen. She whispered, "You heard that?" I took another sip of my coffee, picked up my keys, and said only one thing. "Yeah, I heard. I have work." Then I walked out the door. I spent the rest of the day completely detached. For months, I had been the one anxiously staring at my phone, desperately hoping for a reply, analyzing the tone of her brief texts. Now, the tables had completely turned. My phone buzzed continuously in my pocket. 5 missed calls, 10 messages, 23, 30. For the first time in our marriage, I didn't drop everything to reassure her. I didn't rush to fix her discomfort. I let her sit in the silence I had lived in for the last year. When I finally returned home that evening, the apartment was dark. Maya was sitting quietly on the edge of the couch. She was still wearing the emerald dress, but her flawless makeup from the morning had completely run down her face, and her eyes were violently red and swollen from hours of crying. The moment she saw me, she stood up, her voice cracking. "Liam, please, don't do this. I've been sitting here all day thinking, I know I've been terrible to you." I stood by the entryway and looked straight at her. I told her, "For months, Maya, I begged for your attention. For months, I felt completely, utterly lonely while standing right beside my own wife. For months, I was pushed away. And now you suddenly care. You're crying, you're devastated, and you're desperate. Do you know why? Because I finally stopped chasing you. You only care now because my silence is making you uncomfortable." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she lowered her head. She choked out, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I thought you'd always be here. I got too comfortable." I slowly nodded and said, "No, you didn't get too comfortable with me. You got too comfortable losing me, and you didn't even care enough to notice." For the first time in our marriage, I simply walked past her. I wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. I was just entirely, deeply exhausted. Behind me, I could hear the sound of her quiet, broken sobbing filling the empty room. A lot of people think that revenge in a relationship has to be loud. They think it has to involve cheating, shouting, breaking things, or making a scene. But they are wrong. Sometimes the most profound revenge, the deepest, most agonizing pain you can ever inflict on someone, is simply choosing to stop fighting for them. It's the moment you finally realize your own worth, close your hands, and walk away from someone who stopped fighting for you a long time ago. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Korean Nightmare Stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next inspiring story. Share this video with someone who needs encouragement today, and tell us in the comments, what's the biggest lesson you learned from this story? We read every comment, and your support helps our channel continue bringing powerful stories that inspire people around the world. Thank you for being part of the Korean Nightmare Stories family.